So rocks are a great way to add a little bit of visual interest to an otherwise empty foreground. They aren't hard to paint as long as you don't think about them too much. The only thing you need to keep in mind is the basic shape and what direction the light's coming from. Everything else is pretty much random. So rocks are either basically a sphere or basically a cube, just with uneven, crooked lines, and that'll help you figure out how to shade them. So just like about everything else in acrylic landscapes, rocks are made of 3 layers. You start with your dark base color for shape, then you add a mid-tone texture, and finally a highlight color on the edge that's being hit by the light. Make sure your base layer is totally dry before you move on to adding your mid-tone color. You want your texture and highlight layers to be made of a random looking pattern. So different brush strokes, some taps, some slides. Any brush strokes that are visible should kind of follow the basic direction of the outside of the rock. And you want to use your thickest paint on the side facing the light. As you run out of paint and are doing a little more dry brushing, that's when you can put some strokes down in the darker areas. The side of the rock that's away from the light can just be left as the base color, and that creates the dark shadow. For both your mid-tone and your highlight, you want the side facing the light to be kind of a hard edge, nice and crisp, and the side away from the light is a soft edge that kind of blends into the darker color. So something that makes landscapes look more interesting and appealing is if you create depth. So don't just create one rock, have layers of rocks where some are clearly in front and others are behind. So focus your highlight color on the edge of the rock where the light would hit. As far as color goes, rocks tend to be a grayish brown color, so you can mix some burnt umber with some whites and yellows maybe to kind of dull it down a little bit. You'll notice a lot of artists adding a little bit of a dull green into the mid-tone area of the rock, and that makes it look like there's moss or lichen growing on it. So as long as you keep a little bit of light direction in mind, any random pattern is going to look like rocks. Don't worry if it just looks like blobs of paint to you. It can take a couple days for the illusion to kick in. Oh, and don't forget, something's got to be covering up the bottom of your rock. Either water, another rock, or grass. So add that in once everything else is dry.